The court has just been hearing that 999 call that Dale Cregan made, say, the prosecution on the 18th of September last year. He made the call, the court heard, because he'd laid a plan to lure two police officers to the address so that he could carry out the murders. And in the 999 call, he tells the operator that he thinks he's witnessed a burglary and a concrete block being thrown through a window in a house, and he says he saw the man running away, and at the end some officers he will give them a description. At the end of the call, as you just said, the operator says it is a high priority, they will be there within the hour, and Dale Cregan is heard on the tape to say, "I'll be waiting." Now, the families of PC Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes are in court to hear what happened next. Very distressing details for them to have to sit through. But what the court heard through the prosecution is that the operator assigned two police officers, unarmed all but for one taser, to the job. PC Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes got into their VW van and drove the short distance from Hyde Police Station to Abbey Gardens, where Dale Cregan was sitting. The prosecution say that Cregan knew that the officers who attended would have no idea what would be waiting for them. On arrival, the two officers stepped out of the van and walked towards the short distance to number 30, which is where Dale Cregan, the prosecution say, was inside. The prosecution told the jury he had lured two unarmed officers to the door and he was armed, ready and waiting for them. Nicholas Clark QC prosecution went on to say, as Nicola and Fiona walked through the small front garden, he opened the door, that's Dale Cregan, and immediately fired his Glock pistol. The jury heard how both officers were shot in the chest, but the body armour they were wearing protected them from those initial shots. The bullets, the prosecution said, did not penetrate. The officers, the court then heard, made what the prosecution described as a tactical retreat. PC Fiona Bone moved to the right, the prosecution said, getting out of the line of sight, and PC Nicola Hughes turned to run up the path. As they retreated, the prosecution told the jury that more shots were fired. Nicholas Clark continued. PC Hughes was shot just below her armoured vest, in the middle of her back, and was immediately paralysed, causing her to fall forwards onto the path. He continued, as she was falling or lying flat on her stomach, she was shot 3 more times. The jury then heard that Cregan turned his attention to PC Fiona Bone. She, the prosecution said, was trapped in front of the lounge window as he discharged 24 shots at her. Some, the prosecution said, struck the officer, others struck the house. She managed to draw and fire her taser, the prosecution told the jury. But it was discharged, he said, onto a hard surface, probably the pavement in the front garden. Mr. Clark added, most of the bullets struck her body armour or the wall at the front of the house, but she, he said, was the central target. As she turned and fell, one bullet managed to get through her arm. She was killed from a fatal shot, he said, to the top of her heart. Now, we have to bear in mind that as the prosecution was reading all of this out, the family of PC Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes were sitting in the public gallery listening to this detail as Mr. Clark continued. A total of 32 bullets were fired in 31 seconds. And before he fled Abbey Gardens, the prosecution said he made sure he left his, quote, usual calling card. He launched a fragmentation grenade back towards the garden of number 30, where the two police officers were lying on the floor. So this has just been read out to the jury. It is a crucial part of the prosecution's case. It is graphic in its nature, clearly, and it was, we assume, extremely distressing for the family to hear. But the prosecution would say that understanding the chronology of making the phone call, of PC Fiona Bone and Nicola Hughes attending, as they would, unarmed all but for a taser, and understanding the speed at which those shots the prosecution say were fired is crucial to understanding what happened. Now, as well as that and the 999 call, the jury was told about the events in the run-up to this incident, the night before. We know now, say the prosecution, that Dale Cregan was in hiding, he was on the run from the police, and that we understand he was hiding in a house in Abbey Gardens where the shootings would later take place. But we now know that that night, the 17th of September, he knocked on a neighbour's door, and he had a grenade in one hand and a Glock pistol in the other, and he demanded entry into the house. The homeowner was said to be frightened for his safety of his family. His 7-year-old daughter and his partner were still in the house. And the prosecution described quite a remarkable chain of events. That Dale Cregan entered the house, placed the grenade onto the fire, sat down, demanded a phone, and demanded the man went out and bought him cigarettes, alcohol, and even tried to, quote, score cocaine. The prosecution said that Dale Cregan knew that this was his last night of freedom.